So I wanted to make this video to talk about, yes, reprinting into the ground, and all these people saying these things, just wait, MSRP, we get it, right? I've talked about this a lot, but I want to show you guys in front of you of how ridiculous of a statement this is. And for people that still believe in it, even after you watch this video, it is what it is, right? You've been, I guess, somewhat, in my opinion, a little bit brainwashed from some of these people repeating just wait for the market to crash, MSRP, all these things, because it's not happening, okay? It's just literally impossible for a Pokemon to print to the point where a lot of these things go to MSRP. And I'm going to explain why. And I mean, it's pretty obvious. I mean, you can think about the thought of that. It sounds impossible, which it pretty much is, because literally at this point, there are too many things that are expensive. Now, I understand some of these sets people have stated won't get reprinted. All these things, all just, all these older stuff, they're going to just not print any of this stuff and they're only going to focus on like prismatic evolutions. Guys, how many times have people made these sort of statements? Don't buy the first four sets. Remember, I was saying that because everyone was saying I was pretty much a parrot, and they reprinted Paldea Evolved and they reprinted Obsidian Flames. Remember that, guys? When everyone was saying don't just buy the first four sets, they're not going to get reprinted, they did. The same thing's probably going to happen, in my opinion. I think people are going to say, oh, Pokemon's not going to print these other sets. They're only going to focus on what's, current now. Well, I don't think that's entirely not true. I think they are going to probably focus more on the newer stuff, right? Because, I mean, there's been some evidence of that. They reprinted Surging Sparks booster boxes just recently. They reprinted some like Twilight Massacre, which I guess isn't super, super new. But, I think that is true, right? They're going to focus on some of the newer stuff. But I don't think they're going to exclude all of, like, the middle to a little bit older stuff. Some of the stuff is going to go out of rotation somewhat soon, so maybe those things, whatever, I think it was like 4 to 6 sets that are going to be rotated out. Not exactly sure, but I know some sets are going to be rotated out in like in some time soon, right? So maybe those you can maybe say are safe, but the other sets still that are not going to be rotated out, I think those ones still could get reprinted, right? But hearing all these people just completely exclude the fact that Pokemon might reprint some of these other sets as well in addition to the new stuff, I think is ridiculous, because there's literally been evidence of people making that claim and it didn't happen, right? Pokemon printed other things. So just know that when people say these things about reprinting and Pokemon's only going to focus on this set to print into the ground, that they don't actually know what Pokemon's doing and they're just saying that in their opinion or what they want to happen, because like I just said, there literally is evidence of that not happening. So that's all I'm going to say. But yeah, at this point, probably the first few sets are probably out the equation of being reprinted. That's what I will say. I can't agree on that. Like Scarlet Violet base, I don't think is getting reprinted, right? I can agree on that. So like something like this, I think it's out of the equation. Paldea Evolved, I feel like, is probably out of the equation. It's already gotten reprinted twice at this point. They just recently did one like a few months back. And I think this will be one of the sets that will be rotated in whatever, some months. So yeah, this one I think is also out the equation. I think Obsidian probably is. I don't know if Paradox is part of like the whatever letters on the card for the competitive play thing. If it is, then I guess this one is included as well. Whatever is going to get rotated is probably like, I guess in whatever time, in 6 months or whatever, how long it is. I'm pretty sure it's pretty soon. I think those ones you could probably exclude, but obviously it's not 0% chance that they don't get reprinted. There's always a possibility, right? But those ones I will say are the least likely. But all these other ones, I don't know if Temporal is part of it, or I don't really know. But these middle ones, especially, I will say, like Twilight, Stellar, Surging, like these ones I feel like still have a chance, and maybe also some of the specialty sets that are not going to go out of rotation. I think all those still have an equal chance of getting reprinted. And I do want to mention this before I talk about the most recent sets, because people exclude that fact that these other sets can still get reprinted while they're in rotation, and people just make these weird ideas that they're only going to print the a couple of sets that are expensive. I mean, it would make sense maybe to do that, but then everything else gets expensive, right? So Pokemon, we literally had evidence they print a little bit of everything. It's not the best strategy, but that's what they've done, right? So moving on from all these sets, Twilight, Stellar here hasn't gotten reprinted yet, could definitely get reprinted. But moving on to, I guess, the most recent stuff. Now I did separate the specialty sets, so I'll talk about these. 151, I don't know if it's part of that rotation thing that's going to go out. If it is, maybe it's kind of safe, but 151 has gotten just recently reprinted with the posters. I don't know if they're going to do any ETB reprints. They haven't done it this entire time. I don't know why, but yeah. Paldean Fates, I don't know if it's a part of the whole rotation thing as well, but if it's not, it could still get reprinted. They still haven't reprinted ETBs, but they did with the booster bundle. Shrouded Fable, I don't know. It's a lost cause, to be honest. People have said they're not going to reprint Shrouded Fable, which honestly, that sounds like a smart idea, but who knows? But Shrouded, I mean, it's not even worth talking about in terms of investing, to be honest. But moving on to what I mainly want to talk about here, the very popular sets, right? The most recent sets: Surging Sparks, Journey Together, Destined Rivals, Prismatic Evolutions, Black Bolt, and White Flare. Obviously, this is not released yet, but it's worth talking about because it is going to probably be put in the equation of sets to be printed into the ground, like people say, right? So you look at all these sets, these most recent sets, and you look at how expensive all of them are. White Flare, Black Bolt, they're both double MSRP, right? This obviously pre-order, I do, and I have stated, I think they're going to go down, but I think they're not going to go down to MSRP. I believe maybe, I don't know, just make up a theoretical number, like $80, $90, okay? That's just theoretical. I don't know if that's going to happen or not. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but let's just say that happens. $80, $90 around there. Prismatic Evolution, still double MSRP, or a little bit more. It's at 110, right? And we just got a restock in Costco drops. Destined Rivals, right? It's almost at $300, pretty crazy. Journey Together, still well above MSRP, even though it's not that popular, right? As, you know, some other sets we've gotten recently. I mean, still at like $215, $220. Surging Sparks is at $250, right? So just taking these 4, or technically 5 sets, because Black Bolt and White Flare, they are separate. Taking these 5, or it's actually 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I can't count. Taking these 6 sets, okay? All of these well above MSRP, and we're only talking about the most recent sets. We're not even talking about any of the other sets, right? I've excluded those, like but I said they still have the chance, but I'm excluding those, talking about it right now. 6 sets. Do you think Pokemon is only gonna focus on 6 sets to print into the ground, and when they have to deal with all the new sets coming out? Does that sound like that's gonna happen? And let's say, whatever your theory is about printing into the ground, let's say they only focus on Prismatic, because in some minds, this is the only set Pokemon's focusing on. They're only reprinting Prismatic, right? Let's say they just print Prismatic into the ground, because that's what people talk. Shining Fates, we all know this, right? Okay, let's say theoretically they do print Prismatic Evolutions into the ground. Then what happens to Destined Rivals? What happens to Journey Together? What happens to Surging Sparks? What happens to White Flare? What happens to Black Bolt, right? And we're literally only talking about the most recent sets. We're not mentioning all these other sets that are older and stuff. The whole print into the ground. Don't just wait, guys. What kind of thinking is that? You're telling me whatever set is in your mind, they're only focused on one set, and then that's going to be the Shining Fates, and then everything else skyrockets? Like, the whole idea of that is dumb, in my opinion. And I really think Pokemon will spread out these prints. Will they maybe focus on some of this newer stuff, the more sought-after stuff, a little bit more? Sure, they did it with 151, right? But this whole thought that Pokemon's only going to focus on this one set to print into the ground because that makes sense for them is stupid. Pokemon is going to print all this stuff. They have to, because if they only focus on one thing, everything else goes up. And just taking the most recent, most hyped sets into equation and think about this whole idea, print into the ground, it wouldn't make sense at all. And Pokemon literally 0% of the time has shown that they only print one set into the ground, right? There's been some evidence, you could say, from Sword and Shield, like Crown, Zenith, or, people say Shining Fates, but I've talked about it. That's a different market. Sword and Shield and Scarlet and Violet are totally different because the markets came to be differently. And I've explained it so many times, I'm not going to explain it again in this video, but if you know, you know. But looking at Scarlet and Violet, when Pokemon has done reprints, they haven't printed just one set. Pokemon has not done that, right? They haven't just, when we got those reprints, what did they reprint? Obsidian Flames, Paldea Evolved, Surging Sparks, Twilight Masquerade, and Paldean Fates booster bundles. What is that, 5 different things? Pokemon's not just printing one set at a time, or at least they haven't, right? They haven't just printed one set into the ground and forgot about everything else. That hasn't happened. So you take this into equation, with these sets right now and the prices they're at, they're all well above MSRP. Pokemon needs to reprint these. They're all very new, right? Even Journey Together is still well above MSRP. All of these are. But Pokemon's only going to focus on one of these because that's what people say. How does that make any sense? So, I just want to show you guys this just to put it into perspective of how ridiculous of a claim people make that just wait for Prismatic to go to, Shining Face level, they're going to print this in the ground. Guys, we just got those Costco restocks in just the normal ETB restocks, and that didn't even bring it anywhere near MSRP. It recovered in a month, going from $95 to $110, and it's the summer. I mean, if this doesn't at least show the other side of possibly what is more likely to happen versus listening to these YouTubers that say everything's going to get printed into the ground, I don't know what does, right? It's like the claim is ridiculous. It doesn't make any sense. And you look at the whole market and everything and how expensive everything is, and hearing about people, talking about MSRP printed in the ground, and that's not like, you're not even taking an equation. They have to print the current stuff too that is in demand. They have to print Mega Evolution. I don't know how popular it's going to be, right? Because we're still far out. But if that's popular too, and this market continues to be strong, guys, Pokemon needs to print the current stuff that's popular, and they need to print the stuff that's a little bit older that's popular. It's insanity that people think that all these sets are going to go crash, and they're only going to focus maybe on one set. Like, it's, in my opinion, the dumbest thing to say, because it's such outrageous of a claim. Pokemon, people talk about, this new facility or whatever. I don't know what's going on with that. Honestly, I'm not educated, so I'm not even going to talk about that. But let's say they do get that facility, then maybe can Pokemon print like 10 sets at once into the ground? Like, I don't know about that, right? So hopefully this gives you some perspective of the claims that people make and how ridiculous it sounds on paper. And when you see how expensive these sets are already and how they literally have gone down from restocks and reprints and they have gone nowhere near MSRP, I mean, the idea is so crazy to me. And there's literally been so much evidence of this printing to the ground thing, at least in Scarlet and Violet, not being a thing because either there's too much demand or Pokemon just simply can't print enough of each set to make a difference with the market. It is what it is, right? But, for you guys out there still believe printing to the ground, like I said, I don't know what to tell you, but hopefully this video maybe, open your eyes to a different kind of look on this claim that people make, because it's pretty outrageous. So that's all I want to share. Hope you guys enjoyed, and let me know, do you think the market's gonna crash? Do you think Pokemon's printing everything to the ground, or does it seem pretty impossible? Because for me, it seems pretty impossible. So that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you on the next one.